So, let's talk about 5 things that I like and 5 things that I don't like from New World. So, first of all, these are going to be small things that don't really change how I see the game per se, but I still think they're fun to mention. So, well, let's start with 5 things that I do like. Well, first of all, this small thing, again, like most of these, is the fact that whenever you take a quest, it doesn't show in the quest tracker, it doesn't show the actual little actions that you have to do, but it tells you why you are going to a certain location. So it might tell you, oh, go to this settlement and find the recipe for X. And then once you actually get to the area, it's when the actual, well, normal MMO kind of check marks appear and tell you, oh, you have to kill 5 of this kind of guy. And this is a small thing, but I feel like it adds this extra layer of immersion, which is kind of nice, because even if you haven't paid attention, like most people do, haven't paid attention to the quest giver, to the quest, you haven't read anything, you still have a brief idea of what you're actually doing. And with this kind of like more immersive part is, I really like the fact that you can gather pretty much everything. Whenever you're traveling through the world, you can see a rock, you can probably mine it, or you can simply take it. You see bushes that you can gather, you see trees that you can chop down, and so on, which really gives that extra little thing, which also kind of works with the third thing that I want to talk, which is the small survival vibe that the game has. Like from very early on, it teaches you that you can eat something that gives you this passive buff that allows you to regenerate health outside of combat, which you wouldn't otherwise. So you have to keep yourself fed to some extent. And at the same time, you have this camp that you can craft and place in the world wherever you want, which allows you to craft some basic items, rest for some health regen, and also, well, most importantly, respawn in case you die. And again, this kind of gives you this idea that you are in an unknown world, in a dangerous world, and you have to have like a little camp everywhere you go, which is kind of nice. And this, with all the gatherable, is linked with the fourth thing, which is the fact that how all the crafting and the gathering is all linked up together. And what do I mean by that? I mean that whenever you're gathering stuff, whenever you're gathering, I don't know, iron, or you're mining for some other resources, you might also get some special stones, some rare stones that are then used for actual jewelry. And then when you're gathering, for example, animals, you get leather on one side, and also you get meat, which is used for cooking. So I really like how they made it so that all of these professions, all of these gathering professions and the crafting are all linked together. So even if you're like focusing on gathering one specific resource, you will also get small quantities of another resources that are used for other professions, which is kind of cool. And with this, also the fact that you can simply max out everything. So this would be my 5th things that I like about this game. You can simply max out everything. So not only in terms of the professions, which most MMOs would make you choose for a certain amount of professions that you can focus on. Here you can basically just do everything. It's just a matter of time whether or not you're going to get good enough with all of these. And also, of course, you can max out all of the different weapons, all of the different gears and everything. Meaning that it really removes this need that some other MMOs had, or at least for me personally, that need for having multiple characters in order to cover kind of all of the different needs. Here you can simply just do everything, which is kind of nice. So now I guess for the 5 things that I don't like too much. The first 2, which are actually quite linked to the previous ones that I talked about. So first of all, well, the fact that every gathering, every time they're gathering stuff is linked with other resources makes it so that you can't really focus on a specific profession. Like, there's really no point, because even if you do so, you will end up getting resources for other professions that, unless you sell, there's really not much you can do with them. So I think when I started playing, one of the first things that I started doing is, well, look into the professions, like look into the build that I wanted to go for, and then try to find out which profession, which gathering skill I could just not pay attention to, because this would allow me to just, well, have one thing less to take care of, one thing less to pay attention to. And one of the first things that I realized pretty early on was that there was really no point in trying that, because you would end up finding all the resources for these other professions, and that, in this case, might as well just use them. Of course, you might do some professions less than others, but in essence, it was very difficult to just pinpoint one thing and say, I'm never going to touch this, because you will end up, and you still need all the gathering tools. You still are going to gather pretty much resources for everything. And right now, the only profession that I'm not touching much is the weaponsmith, and it's still like a little bit leveled up, not much. So yeah, I guess to some extent it's a good thing and a bad thing. And then the next thing, which is the fact that you can max out everything, this also has this side of a good thing and a bad thing, right? So this would be my second thing that I dislike, which is the fact that because you can max out everything, that's really not, it kind of pushes the community side of the game away, since you don't need other people to do stuff for you. Like in other games, like in World of Warcraft or in Guild Wars 2, because you are forced to select a few professions, if you want to get the best weapons or the best items from different professions, you actually are dependent on other people doing them. And then you have to, either actually talk to people from your guild, or talk to people, or, go to the auction house to find those items. In this game, you don't necessarily need to. Again, like I said before, it's mostly a matter of time consumption. You will end up at some point having everything maxed out, therefore you will end up being able to do everything. It's just that if you put it aside, you might focus on other things at first. So now, for slightly less intricate or less linked thing, my third thing that I dislike is, well, so how the hotspots for fishing spawn. The spawnings are always like very close for some reason, and very weird position, which makes it really awkward to actually manage to get it. In most of these situations, it's almost impossible to even try to get it with the maxed range of your rod. Most of the time, you will end up having to get in an awkward position and just like briefly launch the rod, which is, I don't know, it's kind of annoying. It would be nice if they could, just spawn them slightly further so that it's easier to find a relatively good position to fish. Now for the fourth thing, which is something that happens a lot in the city I'm based at, it's weird path collisions, and with weird collisions in certain things, which goes for a little bit of, they seem like they go for like weird and more like advanced mesh collisions. And although for realism to some extent it's nice, it's just so annoying that whenever you're just trying to move around, you get little staggers and little stops that force you either to jump, or like have to sprint or something. They go past them. Like for an MMO especially, I think we wouldn't mind having a little bit of clipping in the floor that would simply prevent that with like a more simple like collision mesh that would make the whole thing just more smooth to walk through. I don't understand why they made it this way, and they think it's fine. And then the last thing, which is a quite important thing, at least personally, is the fact that I feel like the music volume is very low compared to everything else. Like if you look at my settings, you realize that I actually have dropped down every single sound outside of the music just so I can hear the music louder. So that, because I put everything down, I can put my my master volume of the computer slightly higher and listen to the music a bit better. For me, the music has always been like an important thing in MMOs, and not just in MMOs, in games in general. So having the music so low seems, I don't know, kind of weird. I would have expected it to be more important thing in the game. So anyways, I think that's basically it. That was the 5 things that I like, the small things I guess that I like, and small things that I dislike about this game. Hope you liked the video. If you did, then subscribe. I don't know. So yeah, thanks for watching and see you next time.